On here.
Okay.
All right, I'm good to go.
All right. Man, KD, my brother.
What's up, L?
Well, first and foremost, man, thank you for coming on the show. You know, for everybody who don't know, Keyon is my OG. He's one of the first guys I met when I came to the NBA that actually took me under their wing, showed me the game, mentored me, gave me shit, didn't let me miss a beat. And Keon, one thing about you, man, that I really value is that you would tease me about the things maybe I felt like I couldn't do, right?
Mm,
And
mm.
you would expose some of my insecurities in a way that was comical, right? But it made me aware.
Mm.
Made me actually gave me confidence
Yeah.
because you felt like it was like he believed in me more than I believe in myself in certain ways, and it was funny. You made it funny, but you know, I read what you was trying to do. You know
Yeah,
what I
you
mean?
didn't take it personal. You didn't
No,
take
no,
it personal. Like obviously the NBA is a lot different now than it was. We had OGs, and when you're in the league long enough, you can kind of see, potential in people, and you try and figure out like how to push buttons to like help unlock them, right? And it's two ways, like I always tried to unlock. One for the here and now, right? Wherever you were in your career, I wanted you to kind of get it in that moment because it'll serve you, down the road.
right,
And then also if I wasn't with you anymore, you know what I mean? I wanted to make sure I was empty, you know what I mean, with my insight, my advice, my encouragement, my accountability, my sense of humor. Yeah, so all those different things, man. But you was very receptive to it and you allowed me to impart in you. But at the same time, L, what you don't realize is that like I was just coming in, right? And I was listening to old school Wiz Khalifa. She say she never been. Like
yeah,
you put me up on a lot of things and helped me and was a mirror to me as well. So I appreciate that, brother. And I'm so glad that we still got love for each other and respect for each other, my friend.
yeah, yeah. And I say this, and this is something me and you will probably understand, and everybody who was involved in Milwaukee at the time will understand what I'm saying when I say this. We was like a light for each other in a dark place.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You know
I
what I mean?
mean, figuratively and literally, because like, probably 8 to 10 months out of the year, it's very gray anyway.
Right.
uh and just the infrastructure that they had, the courts that our practice court, we practiced on every day was very hard.
Mhm.
The infrastructure that they had set up, we didn't get breakfast, lunch, you know what I mean? I remember, like me and Big Drew Gooden, catering food for the plane just so we could have a good meal on the plane.
Yeah.
And that was kind of shot down as well. But yeah, we were a light for one another in the darkness. But they always say, real ones shine in the dark. You feel me? So we did that for one another, man, and we made the most of it, man.
And I don't think y'all know how important that was for me because that was my NBA. That's all
Hmm.
I had. That was my whole experience. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So a lot of guys would come there. At the time, NBA, Milwaukee, from my mind, was a stepping stone um, place. Guys would
Hmm.
come there maybe at the end of their career or the end of their contract. They got 1 year left. They come to Milwaukee, run it up real quick, get their numbers up, go get a contract somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right? I play
Yeah.
with a lot of players. I play with a
Yeah.
lot of guys because that's how they would run through Milwaukee. And so they would get there and they would tell me like, "This ain't the NBA, yeah."
Yeah.
A lot of guys would get there and be like, "Bro, you ain't. This ain't the NBA." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand what they meant. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
That's
I
my
get it.
experience. I didn't know it was breakfast. I didn't know there was different amenities and different ways that were accessible to and resources accessible to players on other teams and whatnot. I just knew Milwaukee.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of looking back on my experience in Milwaukee, L, to keep it all the way 100, I looking back on it, I enjoyed it more retroactively than I did when I was in it.
Mhm.
Because I look at some of the relationships and you know, some of some of the experiences we had as a team.
Mhm.
It was like hilarious. A lot of things was like
Oh,
really, really hilarious.
yeah.
But also just that region of the country. I had a great church. Shout out to Pastor Marlon Locke,
Mhm.
who spiritually helped guide me during that time. Some of the restaurants and things that we got exposed to, the beer and the wine and the cheese and the combinations of those different things, was really, really dope. And then, the beauty of the lake, right? It's like Wisconsin. And like I would take the scenic route home sometimes. And man, like Lake Michigan is beautiful when you're
Yeah.
coming around that curve in Milwaukee and things like that. So, retroactively, I feel like we got an opportunity to, empower, impart into the people. We stood up, for the things that we didn't think was right, which was difficult to do,
Mhm.
but only vets can do, don't have those kind of conversations and challenge
Mhm.
some of the cultural norms. And they adopted and adapted to that, and they got better over time. They just didn't like to hear it along the way.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was them growing pains.
Yeah, some dog days, buddy.
And
Some
then,
dog days.
yeah, and you remember, just to break up, you remember Skip, right? Shout out Skip.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
remember
OG
he
Skip.
on the bus.
He in Palm Beach now.
Oh yeah, he is. I bet he is.
Yeah,
Everybody
he is.
down there. But
Yeah.
remember, Skip put us on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
We was going to a local grocery store to hand
Mm-hmm.
out flyers for people to come to the games.
Mm. Mm.
Remember that?
We,
Giving
we
out
was on our we was on our door-to-door salesman shit. We was
people walking right past us. Be like,
yeah,
"Yeah, you play for the Bucks." They okay.
yeah,
And they
yeah,
groceries
yeah.
to leave. You know what I'm
Part
saying?
of it. Yeah, part of
Giving
it.
out tickets like that in
Yeah,
Milwaukee at the time. You know what I mean? But from that to where they've come now is, I say, it's remarkable.
yeah,
To
absolutely.
see that and be a part of that growth, and being in the foundation of it, right? Is so it's so important, man. And
Yeah,
a lot of times you don't get recognition from that. A lot of times people don't see that, and understand all the footwork that goes into elevating a franchise, right?
mhm,
And all the willingness from the guys who are the highest paid players on the team, from the star players, to be willing to do things that most would look at as like, what, you know what I mean? Like you're maybe too you're above that,
yeah,
right? But I've been a part of so many different situations where we come in like VCU. When I came into VCU, and we was in a hot ass gym on Franklin Street. We was a mid major. We was fighting for the top position in our conference. We had Anthony Grant from Florida. We grinding in there. We had a
mhm,
football team. We pushing. You know what I mean? They had a winning culture, but we trying to get to the next level, and I was a part of that. And then now to see what VCU is now, you know what I mean? It's just um, I've been fortunate. I've been fortunate to be a part of some great situations and help bring them to another level.
yeah,
Me
yeah,
and the Bucks winning the championship after I left is no surprise to me because those are my guys.
yeah,
When I left VCU, the next year they went to the Final Four. Them all
mm,
my guys. That's
mhm,
my senior class right there. I would have graduated with them
mm,
guys. I mean,
yeah,
and that's how good we were though.
yeah,
And it's a culture that you create when you know the best player is the most coachable, when the best player is the hardest working. You know what I mean?
mhm,
So I saw that, and I think that kind of just became who I was because I started late, right? I knew I was behind the wheel, so I felt like I had to work harder than everybody else. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
So
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely, Colin.
yeah. But this is about you, and I wanted to talk a little bit about your upbringing. I wanted to start from the beginning because when we left the NBA, you released a book,
Mhm,
and I remember that, and I remember how powerful that was. And at the time, nobody was speaking out about mental health. At the
yeah,
time, nobody was telling their story for real. Nobody was
yeah,
being vulnerable.
yeah,
It wasn't a thing, right?
yeah.
So you really stepping out at that time and talking about that, man, was very courageous.
Thank you,
Yeah,
thank
bro.
you, thank
Man, you
you.
opened a lot of doors, man, just by telling your story. And it was And the league, the league is small. It's a fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
The moment you did it, everybody knew.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah.
the conversations. I remember the conversations about it and the confusion that people not understanding, but then people, um, it was, man, you opened a lot of doors, man. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk
Yes,
about
sir.
your childhood, your upbringing, and some of these traumas and things you overcome.
Yeah, no, yeah, I appreciate you, for that recognition. The book is called What's Driving You. Um, and so yeah, it was a real passion project for me because I had to go back and unpack some things that I had never really dealt with that you carry into adulthood.
Mhm.
And like kind of being from Florida, being from the bottom of the map, like if somebody pushed the wrong button, like what we like to call it is like get tried, like
Mhm.
don't try me, right? And it's not just about that moment, it's about all the things that you had to endure, right? And so that could, potentially lead into a trigger.
Right.
So to kind of go back to my childhood, bro, like I wouldn't change anything about it. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, two-parent household. My father was a entrepreneur and a sky cap, and my mother was an educator. And I had two big brothers and a big sister. And man, like looking back on it, man, like we had all the elements that a family needs, to be successful and healthy, right? We had grandparents, we had aunts, we had uncles, we had culture, we had history, we had discipline, we had education, we had love, we had all those different things, right? And in the midst of all that, you still have these moments where trauma happens, right? Whether you see your first time somebody, getting shot at, or I mentioned earlier, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I was abused as a kid, molested as a kid, and I kind of like pushed that down. And so like, it could be the best of times and the worst of time at the same time.
Mhm.
And I don't think a lot of kids, especially that generation, wasn't equipped to be able to communicate, what they were experiencing in that moment. And I have a lot of, respect for this newer generation because to a fault sometimes like they over communicate like, well, I just feel, well, you don't understand and things like that, right? So I think it's a balancing act between, being transparent and being able to communicate and being entitled. And I think, the 80s generation, I think we were like kind of right in the middle.
Mhm.
But yeah, man, I'm proud of my mental health journey. It's been some peaks and valleys, right? So it all hasn't been sweet. I've spent time in a mental institution. I spent time in a federal correctional facility
Right.
alike.
Okay.
And those were great growth moments in my life. Looking back on it retroactively, those are some of the times where I was able to grow and recalibrate and heal the most.
Yeah.
But in our testimonies, we go through these tests to get to our testimonies. I try to communicate that so that people can avoid that because healing and growth can happen outside of having to go through rock bottom. And I don't want you to hit rock bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, what would we say some of the things that like helped you get through those moments?
Wow. I would say, connecting with my faith.
Mhm.
For me, like with faith, I would use it and utilize it and walk in it when it was convenient for me.
Yeah.
Right. And so, internally, I was creating, anxiety and double mindedness because on one hand, I'm trying to project all this, awesomeness. But you know what I mean? Like, parts of me were full of shit,
Mhm.
to be quite transparent. And then that was a confliction. So anxiety would kick in, entitlement would kick in when you're doing so well financially and you have, the NBA behind you and you're responsible for so much, your ego and things like that can kick in as well.
Mhm.
And it leaves you very vulnerable, man, for attacks,
Yeah.
and seen or unseen, processed or unprocessed. If somebody pushes the wrong button or if something triggers you, it could take you back to that childhood place that might be unhealed. And so a lot of times, I was really coming from an unhealed place.
Yeah.
With communication, with my sense of humor, just a whole bunch of different things that I could have done better had I would have been equipped with the information and understanding myself a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. So hearing that, understanding it, and then diving into your book a little bit and seeing kind of the things that happen and how it affect. I mean, me personally, I mean, I don't think I would have handled things too differently. You know what I mean? But I will say you recognizing exactly and pinpointing where it came from,
Hmm.
you know what I mean, is the most important thing, the why, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? The why.
Yeah.
Um, and you get real vulnerable, man. You talk about, you and your wife and, the communication with her, the late night calls, and man, it's deep. It's
Yeah,
deep.
it
Man.
goes deep, man.
Yeah,
It definitely goes deep, L, for sure.
everybody has a story, man. Everybody has a story, and there's so many different just the power of being vulnerable,
Yeah.
the power of telling that story, man, and then getting in front of it. And then, if you don't take that pain and use it and transform it to something,
Hmm.
it's gonna eat you up.
Yeah, it will. It
You can't
will.
just ignore it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't just
Yeah.
mask it. You can't just be funny and just be, you know what I mean? Because like you said, these
Yeah.
triggers is real. You know what I mean? You ain't triggered, you ain't a human. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, I think what I've learned is that, like, what you experience doesn't go away. You just have to get the tools to be able to carry those things, right?
right,
You know what I mean? Because it doesn't go away. The fact, some of the things that I went through in my childhood and my adulthood, it doesn't go away.
right,
But, through my faith and through therapy, and through getting comfortable in my skin and, understanding, um, you know, what you had to endure,
mhm,
you get better equipped to be able to deal with those things.
yeah,
And, it's really no landmines now that I'm dealing with. Like, I've had to, be exposed in ways that, many guys have gotten away from, right? Gotten away with, and not for me. That wasn't my journey. You know what I mean? Just because of the respect that I had, the people I knew, the perception that was around me, all these different things. And when those things, like, what you project, you
mhm,
don't live up to, and some of the negative things kind of come out, like, it could have you could be caught up in an identity crisis in
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so in this new phase of life, man, I've totally embraced everything that I've went through, that I've had to experience, that I had to overcome,
Yeah.
that I still grapple with, and I'm
Mhm.
comfortable enough in my skin to be able to walk in it. I think, like, a part of me has shifted a little bit because I used to try and, help people prevent what they experienced. I used to be very hands on with trying to help people overcome it and get it fast,
Mhm.
and I'm really not like that anymore. My vulnerability is very selective now.
Yeah, yeah.
Very selective, and I'm not vulnerable with everyone.
Mhm.
I don't communicate with everyone. I'm very good on boundaries. Some conversations and with people and relationships you need to have conversations with, others you need to walk away from.
Right.
Some of them are delayed, right? And you have to have them, down the road. And I'm totally cool and confident and comfortable with that. It doesn't activate my anxiety or my anger or my bitterness or my resentment anymore. I'm just, like, totally here, 10 toes down, present and where I am, trying to get to the next level in life.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great, man. To come to that, after going through so much is, I think that's like, it's almost like that's the promised land, man. It's like, you get to the other side of all
Yeah.
this, all this trauma. Um, I guess growing up, dealing with, I mean, the things you don't deal with, and then even to this day, who are some of the people you would say been some of the biggest influences, had the biggest effect on you and your
Y-
growth?
Yeah. I mean, I have to start in my household first.
Mhm.
My parents, I learned a lot from them, along the way. My siblings were very influential in my life. um, my mentors, and coaches along the way, some teachers along the way, and the Boys and Girls Club, and some of those, that infrastructure, really helped develop us. And then my homies really, we was outside,
Yeah,
at a very young age,
yeah,
and so we really had a big influence on one another. But I think when I really learned a deeper level of love, it wasn't really until I met my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. And at times in life, man, I didn't know how to love her appropriately, and so I'll digress right there. I won't go too far into that unless it comes up in conversation. But like her love and her commitment and her poise to me, whether it was through battles, with my mental health, whether it was, navigating the NBA and all the pressures that come along with that, no matter if it was when I went and had to do fed time, like some way, somehow, she always showed up, even when it probably wasn't easy for her. So I think like, having, that love, that agape love that, me and my wife and my children we have for one another, has allowed me to, kind of grow and be and evolve into this moment.
Yeah, that's dope. And it's like you curated that love that you had when you was a child. Because it sounds like you had you had that love and upbringing in your upbringing, and now creating that in your own household is important. You know what I mean? I find that it's a struggle, not necessarily to create, but sometimes to sustain. I,
Yes.
I haven't seen the sustainability, you know
Yeah.
what I mean, a lot in my life when it
Yeah.
comes to the relationship and the family and the household. So, um, you know, that's my own generational curse to kind of get over
Yeah.
right now.
That's something.
You
That's
know what I
something.
mean?
Yeah.
Um,
The first thing is you identified it. So,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
room for improvement. You
But you
feel me?
know me, I'm down here trying. Now I got on
Yeah.
both knees. I ain't got no knees left, KD.
Yeah, no, I already know, but hey, boy, hey, I know you now. You're handmade too now,
Hey,
and
come on.
hey, but I would say this though. I think that's one of the most difficult things. You know what I mean in processing, right? It's easy for us to look externally
Mhm.
and kind of say, okay, well, I'm not getting this, or they're not doing this, or I'm not feeling supported here, or I experienced that, and that's a great part of it because that's real. The hardest part of healing to me, man, was like taking that internal look
Yeah,
in places where I might have been full of shit,
yeah,
in
yeah.
places where I might have fallen short. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? In my compliance with the chaos,
Right,
and that's very difficult to navigate. But once you can start, holding yourself accountable, and recognizing your flaws, and instead of listening to respond, listen to hear and understand,
yeah,
and be able to like help people with their healing, especially when you fractured them, being able to say, hey, I am sorry,
yeah.
I apologize. I take responsibility for that situation, not your reaction,
Mhm.
but like, my fracture
Right,
in those moments. And, when you come to that place, man, you kind of get to a different place of communication, understanding, forgiveness, healing,
right.
failures, because a lot of times you don't get to repair failures.
Mhm.
You just have to get better for the next situation,
Right.
and a lot of times that could hold you back, right?
Mhm.
I just choose not to be stuck, anymore in life, with how I navigate my relationships.
Yeah. No, that's real. That's
Yeah.
real. Let me ask you this: What do you feel? How do you feel about how do you feel about generational curses? And do you
What?
feel like was there
Mhm.
anything that your father was cursed with that was passed down that you had to overcome and that you may not? Because I'm like, okay, I know my dad dealt with it. I'm dealing with the same thing.
Yeah.
I done dealt with and overcame some curses, but generationally, some things I'm gonna die with. Some
Yeah.
things my son gonna have to get, and it's gonna be his journey to overcome. You know, and
Yeah.
I don't know if that ever really stops. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, well, so I think all generational curses is the word you use for it. Are real. I do believe they're real. And like the enemy is here to steal, kill, and destroy. And his legions, they're very organized. So they've been able to attack certain families a certain way for generations, right? And so some of those things will continue to show up in your life until you pass that test.
Right,
And so for me, it's about like taking the mantle as far as I can, and equipping and empowering and exposing, the next generation, one of what you had to experience, right? Two, like trying to help them be better than you,
mhm,
right? I think a lot of the dysfunction comes in the silence. A lot of the dysfunction, because think about it, like, hey, what happens in this house stays in this house, you
right,
know. or
Right.
somebody will dismiss your experience. It never happened. You
Right.
know what I mean? All
Right.
those different things. And then, you know, on the other side of that, you can see behaviors in your families, in your fathers, in your, you know, the men that might be around you that might be doing the wrong thing in they in quote the right way,
Right.
right? And it will, you know, kind of desensitize you to you know what I mean, some of the behaviors because
Right.
that's what you saw, you think it's okay.
Right. Right.
So it's just a process, man. It's just a process. And, you know, I'm still navigating it. There's still, you know, areas of improvement for me. But my whole thing is to like, you know, expose my kids to the information, you know, help them understand our faith and why it is that we consider ourselves believers. You know, expose them to the resources that are available to us, whether it's through the healthcare field, whether it's through blood pressure, diet, high cholesterol, etc., or whether it's about mental health and emotional health, right? And communication patterns and understanding triggers and how to set boundaries and how to visualize all those things that I learned from my journey. I just try and make sure I give them back to my kids.
Mhm.
And when they're going through things, I try to, pull places from my life that can help them navigate it because this thing ain't gonna be easy one way or another.
Right. Right. Sure. And when you say kids, you know, one of my other questions, I want to, how do you, I guess, what's been one of the biggest challenges that's in fatherhood, for you?
Yeah. Um, I think, for men, I think the first thing is all about like protecting and providing.
Mhm.
Like we have this, this DNA, this like we want to protect and provide.
Mhm.
I think the most difficult thing is to, stay in your family even when you think it doesn't serve you, right?
Right.
The reason why I say that is because a lot of times the experience that we had so much money that if we wanted to change their environment, we don't have to deal with nothing,
Mhm.
right? You can just switch it up, like, or say fuck it. Excuse
Mhm.
my language. That you could just say forget it,
Mhm.
right? And navigating those hard situations and understanding, your flaws and, you know what I mean, being patient, with the process of family, the same way teams have to come together, the same way Marvel characters have to come together, whether they're the X-Men or the Avengers or whatever. It's the same thing with our family, right?
Mhm.
And, helping identify the roles and everybody embracing their roles and their expectations and giving yourself to the team.
My fault, Katie. Gotta ring my
Oh, you
door.
good. Yeah, man, get that let that little joker bar. He hungry. He hungry, L. Man, feed that baby. How we doing with time? What time is it? What? It's 1:35? Okay, good. Yeah, just as we start getting closer to 2, let me know. So
Okay, I'm back. I'm back.
all right, you gonna cut that part, right, L? I hope
Yeah,
I completed the sentence.
yeah, I edited it out. Yep. Okay, cool. Um, what was it? You was talking fatherhood. Yeah.
Yeah, fatherhood. Yeah,
So
so
yeah.
for me, man, yeah, man, for me, man, my kids are getting a little bit older now. I got 2 kids at Clark University in Atlanta. My oldest daughter is, on the grind and independent now. She lives on her own, and then we got one in the house with us, my son KJ. And so, what I've learned about like fatherhood at different phases, it changes. I think, a lot of times when kids grow up in our infrastructure, sometimes there could be some entitlement, some resentment, especially in our post career, right? Because things kind of shift a little bit.
Right.
And as they get older and their responsibilities and their choices, become more theirs,
Mhm.
there's a different way you have to parent. And so, like, I believe in parenting all the way through and it shifts, right? And when it shifts, you communicate the shifts, so that if there's no surprises, that you lay out expectations, but also that you stay present and you encourage along the way and you give insight and you can choose to use my insight or not.
Right,
You know
right.
what I mean? Like I would rather you learn from my insight as opposed to like life experience having to teach you.
Mhm.
But man, parenting is the gift that keeps on giving, and you get to do it all the way through. And I'm gonna do it until I don't have any breath left in this body.
Right, right. No, you be a parent forever. You know what I mean? You're gonna be a parent till you die. And once
Hmm.
that journey starts, it don't stop. You know,
Facts.
that's the amazing part about it. You know what I mean? And so I guess and how many children you have? How many kids you got?
We have four. Tasha and I have four. I've been
Four.
I've been really fortunate.
Right.
You know what I mean, to have all my children with one woman.
Mhm.
And that's really a blessing. I know a lot of people, some people have, multiple mothers and things like that, and it's, blended families and all that, but that's not my dynamic.
Right.
But I do have empathy, for guys who have to navigate that, because boy, it's tough just navigating ours and what all we have going through. So I could
Yeah.
imagine the complexities.
Yeah. So, when it comes to marriage, and you've been married now for how many years?
24,
24 years.
24 years of marriage. Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's amazing. So at what age did you get married?
I got married at 21.
Married
Yep,
at
we got married at 21. 6 months after our first baby Didi was born. So
Okay.
we got married very early, man. I've been with my girl since we were 16 years old. And man, we've had to ride a lot of waves together.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I'm just thankful, man, because like we're meeting different versions of ourselves. We're not the 16-year-old anymore. Like,
Right.
right, she's 46 now, I'm 45. And you know what I mean? You have that history, right? And so with history, a lot of times, man, it's a blessing because like, we know each other. But
Right.
also with history, you know what I mean? We, we've had failures along the way. We've had seasons of life where we weren't our best for
Mhm.
one another.
Right.
And, there's different levels of healing, that you're still trying to repair and that you have to navigate from when you were a youngster compared to who you are now.
Right.
And so, man, like it's so beautiful to see it all come together. If you could be patient enough to allow, things to happen, experiences to happen, accountability to happen. What comes out of that, man, you actually get better and you get closer, and your respect for one another and your appreciation for one another and your honor for one another gets stronger if you
Mhm.
can endure some of those things. But I don't think you can endure them without like full accountability, transparency, and honesty in those moments, because then you'll be guarded.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. No, these are definitely keys, man. These are keys to sustainability, perseverance. I think that's what I'm hearing. A lot of these things that you probably did experience and learned along the way
Hmm.
that you get to implement into your marriage and pass down to your kids as well.
Yeah.
So, which is, I think that may be, wow, that may be more important to the legacy than anything you can do financially,
Yeah.
right? Is
Yeah.
passing these morals and these tools down to your children. Man, it's
Yeah.
powerful. It's very
Yeah,
powerful.
man. Thank you. Thank you, bro. Thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
No, for sure, for sure. And I want to, I guess, shift gears a little bit right now and kind of dive into some basketball. You
Yeah.
know, you
Let's talk some hoops.
you were kind of sore. You one of those guys that you could teach the game. You know the game. You were doing things. If you're doing things in your game that the kids are doing now, you know
Yeah.
what I mean. There's a move you mastered. Where you turn your back.
Yeah. The Smitty. I got
Yeah,
that from Steve Smith back in the days.
see, and that move
Mm.
right there has been passed down generation, and it's not a move used by every player.
No, no,
No,
no, it's
no,
not.
it's a very elite move.
Yeah.
It's a very
Yeah.
elite move by
Yeah.
very elite
It
players.
it worked for me for
It works,
years.
and it works for everybody who know how to use it, but only a few players know how to use it.
Yeah.
Now, you was one of them players, man,
Yeah.
and I guess talk about some of your favorite parts. 1 second, Jonathan. Let me turn. Man, the pool man here.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Nah, but yeah. So yeah,
We're
KD.
talking
So
about the Smitty.
yeah. So what's your favorite part of the game? I would say
Mm.
it's different elements to it, but what's
Ooh.
your favorite?
You know what? My favorite part of the basketball game, now that I'm kind of out of the game, and Larry, I played literally on every level. I coached on a high level. Um, all those different things, man. The game's been really good to me. The thing that I love most about the game is that the parallels that it has to your everyday life,
Mm,
right? You learn hard work, teamwork, discipline, resourcefulness, dedication,
mhm,
how to deal with failure, how to deal with injuries, you deal with so much in the game and how those life lessons you can translate those into your personal life and use those same intangibles. And
yeah,
so, like outside of like, the rhythm and the cadence and you know what I mean, dunking on somebody, or Hezo pulling somebody, or crossing somebody up, or locking somebody down. Like, man, it's the things that the game teaches you. It's the people who the game allows to, you to be around. It's the mentorship and the friendship and the bonds and the bus rides and the plane rides and the
right,
dinners and the late
right,
night, sessions. You know
right.
what I mean, that we would have. And in some of those moments, man, that's where I was a star, right? Like when the cameras were off, because I was always a role player. But where I kind of starred was in the locker room
Mm-hmm.
because I really cared. I really did because I didn't get a lot of mentorship early in my career until I got to Miami. And I saw the impact that Eddie Jones had on me with how to order my steak and how to dress appropriately, when you go into certain situations and how to tie my double Windsor tie and all those little things, how to spend time with your family on your break and things like that. So I always wanted to kind of pass those things along. And dude, you know how many nights we spent together? You know what I'm saying? Like, just in conversation, right? And I remember one time in particular, you weren't playing a lot, L, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dude, look at Amari Stoudemire. Look at how he screens and how he rolls and how he positions it and how he makes his decision. I'm like, dude, you could do that. You could do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was you was like, you know what? I see that. Something clicked,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it helped you go on and become a better player, a better person. And you had more respect for me because I was able to help like unlock some of those things in you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what the game is all about, man. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And that's why I don't like to see these teams with all young players in the game because they really don't have like OGs who go to bat for you and hold you accountable and straighten you out and teach you things that prevent you from going down the wrong path. And so, yeah, the things I love about the game most is the parallels that it has for life.
Yeah. And I'll say this too. In those moments, you invested in me, right? And even though you was going through your own situation too, because
Hmm.
coach was fucking with you. He
Yeah,
was,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yes,
And
go
everybody
ahead.
was, man. Like everybody was so consumed with their own situation, their own pockets, their own
Hmm.
playing time. They didn't have time to really be
Yeah,
vets.
yeah,
But you did. You know what
I
I'm saying?
did.
Yeah, you did. You know what I mean? And you know, that's just that was vital. That was
Yeah,
vital.
man.
And I was
Yeah.
able to pass that energy down to Giannis and pass that
Hmm.
down to the rookies that came to the team. And so I think that while there may not be vets, there's still some sort of culture left there because we had rookies. You guys did your thing. And we implemented a little bit, and Giannis will become one of those vets as well. And with his energy, it's gonna
Hmm.
spread a long way. That he cares. You know what I mean? He cares
Yeah.
for those guys, and they can feel it. They know he's going to bat for them, and they know um, he's willing to put his what he needs aside for the team. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And if he's able to do that at the highest level, then everybody else should be able to do that, right?
Follow suit. Follow suit.
And that's
Absolutely.
how championship.
Absolutely.
That's how
Each one teach one. Each
yeah,
one teach one.
Yep. You get a bunch of stars to do that, and with the Warriors, you got a lot of examples of that. So I like that. What teams right now impress you? What teams? What players are
I
impressive?
mean, yeah, so many, so many. I love what Detroit is doing in the East, and JB Bigstaff has done a great job. He's a second generation head coach in our league. Really helped build that Cleveland team up, and was able to kind of go over to Detroit and even take it to
Yeah.
another step. So I've been very impressed with them. I've been very impressed with OKC and just what they've been able to do, and I know they've lost games and things like that. But just the program and the infrastructure that they have, it's very impressive. Um, Boston Celtics, man, hey, with Tatum being out and them playing as well as they have played, like I'm
Right.
very impressed with that.
Mhm.
Yeah, man, I'm really impressed with
What do
a
you think
lot of the teams in the league,
What do you
and
think
not
that
so
says
much
about
with
Boston?
others.
What do you think that says about Boston? Because that's kind of been a thing. When one is injured, the team is better. What do you kind of think about that?
Yeah. So look, I mean, I think in spurts, when a guy goes down, it's a great opportunity for other guys to step up. I mean, they still got young players, because they got rid of a lot of pieces, Al Horford and
Mhm. Right.
Drew Holiday, and what I mean. They kind of got rid of some guys and kind of cleared some room, and so a guy like Peyton Pritchard, like who's getting his first chance to start, like you see his game growing. You see some of those guys getting more opportunities than they wouldn't necessarily get on a championship contending team.
Mhm.
So sometimes less is more, but like to actually win it all, to be 100 with you, if you don't have those elite superstar players, like it's going to be very difficult for you to win it all. And I don't think the Celtics will win it all without Tatum.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. And Spurs, they'll be able to, like sustain and things like that. But man, when the game gets tighter and it's the playoffs and it's a 7 game series, if you
bad.
don't have that superstar player, once they, sit on all the plays that you got, and that can go and get a bucket or draw a foul or draw a double team. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't have the opportunity to win. And history has shown that superstars kind of win championships.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I like his game a lot. Man, Tatum is one of them guys, man. That he got a lot in his bag.
Yeah, he got yeah.
Yeah. What's
Still proving himself too.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I mean, man, LeBron's still proving himself. Who's
Isn't that something?
who's your? I mean, that's this generation though, But who's your goat? Who's your goat?
Who's my goat? So I think my top three is MJ, LeBron, and Kareem,
Mhm.
or my top three. How you want to rank them? It's interchangeable, however you want to do it. But that's the way that I kind of put it. Is MJ, LeBron, and Kareem. I think MJ is the greatest player of all time. I think LeBron is the best overall player of all time.
Okay, okay. So greatest. So
Hmm.
you say greatest, what do you mean? So you mean more legacy versus points?
Well, not just legacy and points. I think it's a combination of all things, right? How you handle the media, how you grow the game on your watch, right? Um, championships, obviously, you have to throw in there, and then you have individual accolades. See, like with history on these young players and new players side, like they have a blueprint, they have a model of success, right, that they can build and they can grow off of. And so a lot of those guys might be more durable and be able to play longer than some of the guys from previous generations. Also, there's been some rule changes, and you didn't get an opportunity to play against where you used to have to bring the ball up like Mark Jackson with the
Oh,
back to the basket,
yeah.
because those guys used to be able to have a bent elbow and a broken hand. So the hand checking and things like that, man, it was so much more difficult to deal with. It was
Mhm,
so much harder to play in those areas where there were the Jordan rules, and you know what I mean. You could hand check. It was, and the pace of the game wasn't as fast. And so, as good and as great as our players are right now, it's easier to score.
yeah.
So like sometimes that makes me feel like I really don't know how skilled and how good these guys are, because like if their first move is cut off, I don't know what their second move is a lot of times because if they get touched or if they get bumped, it's a foul. They don't
Mhm,
have to play through contact,
mhm.
right? And so that has a difference with personnel as well. And that was strategic to bring more parity to the game and to make it more global
Right.
because I'm a big proponent of this. Under the old rules, international players could not really hoop to the level that they hoop now
Mhm.
against American players because there's certain things that can't be replicated from the courts that we grow up on and the energy that we have with those rules. But now, if I can't touch you, if I can't use my aggression or my toughness, you know what I mean? Like, it's really no place in the game for that. So I
Mhm.
just don't know how skilled these guys truly are because they can't be touched.
Yeah, yeah, right. And that's like, me, man, I stay in foul trouble because I'm an aggressive player. I stay in foul trouble because I'm an aggressive player. But if I feel like if I would have played back in the day, I would have fit in a little bit better because, I just play physical. Um, yeah, but
Yeah,
man, the
I
game
think you
has
would have been. You would have been. You actually would be perfect for this era. To be real with you, with your athleticism, your length. Because like I remember the first time we went on the track, and you and Brandon Jennings was on the track, bro. And I was like, dog, like, no, this dude ain't like 6'10" with like an 11-foot wingspan, and I can't beat him in a foot, right? I can't beat him in a race. Like your athleticism, and then you had nice touch, right? But like people, you know what I mean? Like the game was different then. So you weren't,
yeah, yeah. That was
shooting
fine.
100, 200 threes, getting 200 makes a day and things like that. But man, you had a touch, you had timing, at the rim. You were extremely fast. You were athletic, so you could finish. You were a lob threat and you could shoot. Like, dude, like, like a lot of timing is everything. Shit, I wish I was able to play in this era,
Yeah.
kind of with some of, the movements that I have. I would
Mhm.
have definitely rather played in this era than the last. One, the money is better. Two, the rules are easier.
Right.
Shit, sign me up.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely a better. I mean, you ain't even got to go to the NBA. It's a
Facts.
whole different climate
NIL.
to sports and entertainment.
Facts.
You know what I mean? They're seeing it for what it is, and the money's starting to trickle down, which is great. You know what I mean? I said is what has been some of your because you played in Miami, you played with Shaq, you played with D
Mhm.
Wade, like you said, and what's been some of your most memorable NBA moments? Like your takeaways where you like that man, this is something that's gonna stick with me forever.
Yeah, you know what, L, man, like I count it all joy. Like I enjoyed the entire time of it.
Mhm.
And a lot of those seasons in life, you don't enjoy them while you're going through them, but
Right.
after you come out of them, like, and you see the growth and the development and the resilience that you have, like, nothing will be wasted on the journey. But obviously, when you play with the bigger organizations and the superstar players, everything is more highlighted, right? So I enjoyed all the time. Um, yeah, man, I can't say that one stands out. If I say that anything kind of stands out, I would say my time with the Celtics
Okay.
during that lockout season was really awesome. Playing with the Heat back at home was awesome. Playing with the Clippers was awesome. We were all young out in LA, showing out, hanging out.
Yeah.
And then my time in Orlando, man, was like super dope. Like that was, probably, um, you know what I mean? Like my best run as far as a player, that 3-year run I had in Orlando. We got better every year. Young Dwight Howard and Jameer Nelson and Hedo Turkoglu started coming on. We got Rashard Lewis. We had a good team, and that team went to the finals after I left. So, it's something synonymous about like me being on a team and leaving.
Mhm.
Like they usually gonna go to the finals. So I was the problem.
Nah, you wasn't the problem. See, it's like that's the same way with me. They say you always judge a team by how they are when you leave. You know what I mean? Because your legacy, your mark. You know what I mean? If they a worst team when you leave,
Yeah,
that's when you were trash.
yeah,
Better, that means you got them. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? You were part of that momentum of them getting better, or you probably was the problem. Who knows? Who knows? But
As one of your former teammates, one thing I would probably say like why I was able to impart in you so much is because like for a fact like every drill, every rep, I did that shit hard.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I was a consummate pro
And you was
in
open.
regards to like showing up to work and
Yeah.
getting that work in, right? And so that allowed me to be able to impart in guys because they had respect for my work ethic, number one. So I learned that in Miami. I didn't know how to go hard like that, when I was with the Clippers.
Yeah.
But when I got to Miami and I saw what it meant to be able to do every rep as hard as you can with as much skill, focus, discipline, and technique as possible, and then you train on that level, and then you learn how to dwell there. Like I felt like that was a cheat code. So I always, anybody who I like kind of potty trained or helped or mentored, I wanted to like indoctrinate like that grit.
Mhm.
Sure.
No, that's fire. That's fire. And so Miami, man, there's a lot of rumors about Miami. I don't never played there, but they say that that is that culture. And how you gonna develop that? Is that Pat? Is that what is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it starts at the top, Mickey Arison and Pat Riley.
Mhm.
Pat has a way of doing things with military precision and excellence. And you know what I mean? Like, everybody who he brings in, has to understand that, right? And uphold that, or you won't be there long.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's something about like that, like I said, from the top, Mickey Arison to Pat Riley, and they've cultivated and developed a lot of talent. And yeah, to me, like, between the Spurs
Mhm.
and the Heat in particular, like there's a Spurs culture, there's a Heat culture that like no matter who's there, you know what I mean? It's either Pop or Pat Riley, who disciples,
Yeah.
kind of running those shows.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So you got Pat, Pop, and Phil. Like
Mhm.
which one you taking?
Okay. You know what? I look at it from like the disciples that you have when you're talking about a coaching tree.
Mhm.
So I put Pop and Pat ahead of Phil
Okay.
because, like, the assistant coaches who came under Phil's tutelage did not go on to have successful careers the way that, the Stan Van Gundys and the Jeff Van Gundys, you know what I mean, and the Eric Spoelstras from the Pat Riley tree. And there's many more, outside of that, right? The same with Pop, I mean, even Sam Presti and OKC is a Popovich disciple, and that tree, Emi and Doka, and all those guys like who kind of came, Ava Ray Johnson. I can kind of go on and on, but those guys had more disciples
Mhm.
than Phil. Now, I put Phil ahead of them in coaching because he has more championships,
Mhm.
right? And at the end of the day, you can't discount championships. I don't care that he coached, Mike and Shaq and Kobe. At the end of the day, somebody else did too, and they didn't win those championships,
Right.
for the most part. So Phil is great as a coach. I think those other two guys are better with, developing men and leaders.
Yeah. Okay. Nah, dope. We we're gonna be wrapping up soon. I guess one of my final, is what is KD? What's KD doing nowadays? How's that
Hmm.
transition been for you from leaving basketball and going into other things that you're doing and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, believe it or not, I retired in 2013 from playing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
that was a long time ago. So
Yeah.
in that time, man, I worked in the front office with the Celtics as player development coordinator. Did some consulting with the NBA for a while, and got on with the NBA Players Association. From the NBA Players Association, I went on to coach at the Utah Jazz as player development assistant as well. So like, man, the game has been really good to me. I was able to be around the game for a very long time. So I never discount that part of my life. I'm a part of that less than 5,000 in mankind history.
Right.
And like, I'm very proud of that. Sometimes I get a little upset because like, man, you have all these relationships with people who you spent so much time with and did so many first, and we don't get to talk as much anymore. And that's a choice. And that's something that I feel like our generation, if there's a generational curse with NBA players, is that we isolate from one another in our post career, and it shouldn't be like that. So I encourage guys, if you see this, like, let's break bread. That's very important. But right now, man, the primary focus, you see it on the back of the screen, man. It's Beyond Media Group, man. We're trying to build our media company. We're responsible for content, podcasts. We manage some players. We do a lot of different things, and that's cutting edge in this new technology era.
Yeah.
and I'm really 10 toes down and really locked in on that. Of course, I still do my speaking engagements and I do things like that. But when you go through a situation like I went through, L, and for the people who don't know, is I did Fed time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So going out and getting a job that really, is in your wheelhouse is not open to me anymore. So
Mhm.
everything that I have to do now at this point is creative, it's entrepreneurial, it's collaborative,
Right.
and it's empowering,
Right.
because one of the things I never want to do again is get fired. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Be in a position to get fired. Right. Have
Yeah.
somebody holding that over
Facts.
your head. You know what I mean? You want to be the one that's firing people if you got to.
Yeah, well, if we have to challenge you, we're gonna try and develop you. If we don't develop you, we'll replace you, and hopefully you learn on the next go round.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah, for real. You wanna talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, dude, whatever. You got me here. So like, what's up? What's
Yeah.
up, bro? Like, go ahead, dog. Go ahead, bro. Like,
Well,
go ahead.
I mean, I guess as much as you feel comfortable talking about, like what exactly happened. You know what I mean? I think nobody really knows. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Even from
yeah,
the inside, internally, we don't really understand.
yeah, yeah. No, I get it. I'll say this, L. What's first and foremost, man, like, it was bad decision making on my part, and I always start with the accountability because it's easy for somebody to say, oh, these guys told, or oh, these guys, did this. Like at the end of the day, those things did happen. Guys did cooperate, guys did tell, guys did snitch. But on what? They snitched on something that I did that was wrong,
Mhm.
right? And I take full responsibility for my part in it. I did my time for it, and I went through the reputational fallout. I went through getting fired. I went through the public humiliation. And I just hope that the same people who were, throwing me under the bus, when I was going through my situation, I hope they can, look back now and say, like, damn, okay, KD went through that. And you know what I mean? He bounced back like a true G.
Yeah,
And that's just a part of it, L. It was bad decision making on my part. And I take full responsibility from it. And I've grown from it. I've gotten better. But one thing I'm not embarrassed about it anymore. I've already kind of gone through those phases and things like that. So
right,
if you mess with me, you mess with me. If you don't, you don't. I don't give a shit either way. But one thing I do know is that I'm a better version of myself. My family was able to sustain that. It was an extremely humbling experience. And look at us now.
right. How long did you do?
I did I did 10 months and 7 days in.
Mm,
Uh, I did 7 months of halfway house, a month and a half of home confinement. So
mm,
on a 30-month sentence, with FSA and Second Chance Act, which is convict talk or prison talk or whatever. A lot of people probably don't understand that. On a 30-month sentence, I ultimately did 18 months in the system, and then you'd go to your supervised released part of it,
mm.
portion of it.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, as your brother looking at it from the outside, I just didn't know what the hell was going on, but to see you, like you said, to see you overcome it, and keep elevating, it's not as we're gonna keep getting knocked down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think to the getting knocked down, even being knocked down publicly, isn't it's actually a good thing if you can get back.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because that's what
Absolutely.
that's all it's about. You know what I mean? You just show more perseverance and more willingness to overcome, more change, more accountability, and become more of an example through your bad decisions. You know what I mean? That's how God works sometimes. You know what I mean? And we just, you know, me as a brother, man, thankful you out here, man. Thankful you doing the things that you're doing, and paving even more ways, opening even more doors, creating even more platforms of sustainability, and jobs for other people, man. I think man, you gonna continue to be an inspiration, bro. And I appreciate you as a brother, man. Um,
Man, I
first,
appreciate you too, champ. And man, look, man, the race is not given to the swift nor the battle to the strong, but he who endures to the end,
right,
right? And so, like, man, this whole life thing, man, is a race of endurance and patience. And man, like I have no malice or ill will towards anybody who kind of went through the same situation as I went through. I have no malice or ill intent for anybody who, didn't get caught up in this, you know what I mean, who understood kind of what was going on. Like, it's all love. I just don't fuck with everybody no more. And I ain't tripping about that, but I ain't mad.
Yeah,
I ain't tripping.
yeah, yeah.
When we break bread, I'm gonna tell you who snitched though. You know what I mean? I won't do them like that, publicly or whatever. But like when we break bread, I'm gonna tell you exactly who snitched. And I hope they see this because like I know
Yeah.
that was messy, L. You might, yeah, that was messy.
Well, nah, I mean, it is what it is. Somebody had to say so. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just, otherwise, it wouldn't.
That was messy.
It
That was
did.
messy, but oh well.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. We here.
Yeah, we locked in, KD, man.
Yeah.
But man, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you for the game, the knowledge, the wisdom, the perspective. And man, yeah, it's been a great episode, man. It's been an hour in. And we gotta do a follow-up and keep doing some stuff, man. And this is the first episode of Sanders Says Season 2. So, this is gonna be our first guest, man. So just happy you blessing the podcast, man.
Man, Larry Sanders, I love you, boy. I ain't worried about that. And don't try and knuckle up with me how you did John Brockman now. Don't do me like that. Don't do me like that now, my boy.
And you know I had to get into it with a couple of I was a feisty young kid, but I had my heart, I just wanted to win, man. I had to man, I had to.
Hey, L, you know what we should do though one day? On the real though, we should probably just like do like a shoot the breeze where we just talk about like some of the fights that we we saw throughout our career. Wow. I just think that would be hilarious, bro, because I know at least 2-3 of them in Milwaukee that we could just sit back and talk about.
For real though, for real, man. We done seen some fights. I done been involved in some. I done seen some.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes you have to knuckle up, man. So you fight your brother, you get better. You know what I mean? Hopefully, y'all get better, overcome. The team get better.
You already know. You already know. All right, champ. Thanks for having me, champ.
And I appreciate you, Kay.
Okay. All right, for sure. Awesome. All right, L. Hey, boy, you so handmade, boy. You so motherfucking handmade. God damn, boy. All right, well, I got to get ready for the next show.
All right, for sure.
All right, everything showed up well on this end?
Yeah, everything good.
Okay. All right, buddy.
All right, yep.
Hey, stop. Hold on. What'd you say, Mike?
Hey, Larry, hit stop recording just to double check that all my files on my end uploaded for you as well.